Hey folks, this is your mental health moment with Shan. I'm a licensed professional counselor and I'm coming to you from sunny Chattanooga. It is so beautiful here today. Got the creek rolling in my backyard, and we've had weeks and weeks of rain and fog and density, and it's just everything's better when it's sunny. I came to you last week in kind of a spontaneous pilot about how to deal with anxiety, especially as the world is changing so rapidly. And today I want to talk to you about just the issue of fear when we are truly in a global crisis. And I don't know about you, but as this thing narrows into the United States, it's just more and more difficult to deal with the anxiety of it all, and that's true with about everybody that I talk to. Okay, my dogs are telling you hello this morning, and there they are. I'm going to talk to you just a little bit about some pieces of trying to stay sane in a situation like this that are just very, very practical. I want to talk a little bit about panic attacks in case there's anybody out there who's struggling with that. And I also then just want to close in a little pastoral moment from the scripture. So first off, I want to talk a little bit about just some practical things to get through quarantine and social distancing, because we're very isolated right now. And there's a lot of good information out there that I'm hearing from other people, but one of the things that I'm not hearing quite as much is this idea of just how to self-regulate. We talk a lot about boundaries in our more psychologically aware decade. And usually when we talk about boundaries, we talk about it from the standpoint of healthy relationships and moving away from toxic situations. But I want to tell you that one of the biggest ways we need to be using boundaries is kind of with ourselves. And so the idea here is that we are trying to both place boundaries for self-care, for learning how to get on some kind of rhythm throughout the day. You know, last week I talked to you about just taking daily rhythms all throughout the day through a visual prompt that says breathe. But it could also be setting your phone on the hour every hour to just stop and breathe and to remember your mantra and to rehearse truth. Another part of that, however, is just having some kind of structure. Most of us really do better when we have a little bit of routine to our day. And now that most of us are home, and those of you who are not, God bless you. All my healthcare professional and service providers who are out there just doing the hard job of being in the fire. God bless you. Thank you. But for those of us who are at home, we have this other challenge of just kind of getting out of bed in the morning and figuring out how to do our day. So I just want to suggest maybe 5 minutes every night that you kind of put it in your phone, like a really loose structure. From 8 to 9, I'm going to eat breakfast and spend a little time with the Lord. From 9 to 10, I'm going to go on a walk or do some exercise. From 10 to 11, I'm going to do something crafty. From 11 to 12, I'm going to try a new recipe and make an awesome meal. But just some kind of flow to the day, because it's really easy just to kind of sync with information and the world at large. The other thing I want to encourage is regulating yourself in terms of kind of knowing what you need. And on this, there's a real continuum, because we all deal with stress. We all deal with anxiety in different ways. You know, some of us intellectualize and get very cerebral. And some of us get very, we get very emotional, and we're deep into grief or anxiety. Some of us just get busy tasking and using this as an opportunity to get all our household repairs done. But wherever you are in that, you have to kind of explore what it looks like to do good mental health practices for yourself. So for the cerebral types, you might be finding that you're using that for denial, that you need to face in a little bit deeper to the realities of how serious this is. For those of you who get busy tasking, we need to hear the invitation for solitude and to come deeper into our relationship with Christ and allow the noise of the world to move far away so that we can hear the voice of our good shepherd. And so we're all on different continuums there. Find your true north. Find your place where you're really thriving in the light of Jesus, and set some boundaries for yourself. Maybe that means getting off your phone. I know that's a big one for me. I want to know everything there is to know about this virus and what's happening in the world at large, and then I take it on with this sinking empathy. And there is good reason to lament and to mourn, but I have to set boundaries with myself with that. Otherwise, you might need to also set boundaries with yourself by being able to move toward the realities of what's happening in the world at large. And so we're all in different places, but take the time to figure out what boundaries with yourself looks like for you. I want to talk a little bit about panic attacks because, mercy, I've never had one. I counsel with a lot of folks who do. But I'm going to tell you, about 2 or 3 nights ago, I had a phone call in the middle of the night, and it was a friend processing stuff that she was seeing and hearing from the ICU here in Chattanooga. And I tell you, it made me sink. I mean, fear, serious fear struck my heart. I was up for the rest of the night crying out in prayer and weeping. Hamilton County is already struggling with a deficit in medical supplies. And so it's hard. If you struggle with panic attacks, first let me define what that is. Some people feel like it is very similar to a heart attack and even have gone to the emergency room for it. It's that feeling of pressure pushing on your chest, can't get my breath, maybe a tingling sensation down your arm, and just all kinds of hyperventilation. They usually last 10 to 30 minutes, the actual attack, and then another couple of hours to kind of get through. I just want to assure you, if that's what's happening to you, you're not dying. They may feel like death, but it is fear striking your heart. And you just get through it, you breathe. But one thing that can help is this thing we call grounding. And grounding is when you can use your 5 senses to kind of reconnect you back to your environment and kind of get out of your body, get out of your emotions and back into the environment. So that can mean biting the inside of your cheek or your lip, using tactile feel, noticing 5 things in the room that you could visually focus on, knowing 3 sounds in the room that you can kind of focus on. It's just coming back down, breathing, focusing very much on your breath so that you can get through the attack. And these things are very scary, but I just kind of want to offer some education as to what they are. And then I would encourage you, sometimes panic attacks happen because we're suppressing, and then they just kind of pop up, and it seems like it's out of nowhere. But what's actually happening is there's all this emotion that I'm not really taking hard looks at, that I'm not really allowing time to grieve and to emote. And so taking time to journal, taking time to verbally process, taking time to go for a walk and just have a good cry. These are ways that you can kind of do that daily release of emotions so that things aren't building up to the point of a panic attack. And I hope that helps. Lastly, I just want to say that I'm crossing paths with a lot of people who are asking, like, what's wrong with me And I'm going to do a clip next, probably on grief, the grief process, and how really the whole world, we're in a state of grief and trauma right now. But for now, folks are asking, why can't I grab hold of peace? What's going on with me that I just can't seem to apply faith right now? I want to say that in the Christian world, there can be a lot of shame for recognizing or dealing with that hard reality of things that we consider as sin. Anger may feel it's in that category. Anxiety and fear is in that category. Negative emotions. And of course, Jesus has told us literally, I think it's 364 times or something, do not be afraid. Because he's calling us to intimacy with him. So he's calling us to press out of the fear toward him. But fear can be exactly the thing that moves us toward him. And it's absolutely nothing to feel shame over. I feel like there's a lot of folks who are feeling almost ashamed to admit how afraid they are. And my dear brothers and sisters, I just want to say, because you're human, it's absolutely okay to be honest with how you feel. I want to call your attention, you'll remember the stories of John the Baptist. What a godly guy he was. I mean, he wasn't into social pressure. This guy was out in the wilderness eating locust and honey and dressing like a maverick and just was really tuned into his mission. But in his final hour, when he confronts Herod, if you remember, in the Herodias thing, and gets put in prison and was in confinement, was socially isolated and was approaching death, he asks, "Are you really the one that we were looking for?" Now, this guy had preached Jesus his whole life, and in his final hour, he's saying, "Are you really the one?" He was having a moment of doubt. He was wrestling. He was struggling. And guess what? When he asked that question and the disciples came to Jesus and Jesus responded, it wasn't with condemnation. It wasn't with rebuke. It wasn't with, "How dare you ask such a question?" Instead, Jesus said, "Hey, go back and tell him this," and read it. It's comforting words, assuring words. And we see Jesus himself, even in the Garden of Gethsemane, wrestling. I'm not going to say Jesus was given to fear, but he was definitely wrestling with some piece of the angst of what the situation was calling for. And he was saying, "Lord, if there's any other way, if there is just anything other that you can do here, can we do it?" As he pled and wrestled and had great sweat drops of blood coming from his forehead. And then as he wrestled, he surrendered and said, "But not my will, your will be done." Folks, this is where we are. Just let the honesty of your anxiety be known. Now, some of you aren't anxious at all. And you know why? It's because you don't think this can happen to us. You don't feel like there really is peril all around you. And you've got a different set of things to press into. But for those of you who feel fear and feel anxiety, be comforted that you're in good company, both with the world at large and even with folks like John the Baptist and Jesus himself. If there are other things you want us to deal with in a future one of these, just let me know. I would love to comment to you personally or privately, or be able to address topics that would be helpful to you in the future. God bless you, my friends. Stay safe, and we'll talk again very shortly.